Narasimhan to formally take a session. May I request Nitesh to formally introduce Narasimhan.
Thank you, Vipul. Good afternoon, friends. It's my privilege to introduce our today's first speaker, Dr. V.R. Narasimhan. Dr. V.R. Narasimhan is a postgraduate in Commerce, MBA in Finance, PhD and member of Institute of Company Secretaries of India. He has about 35 years of work experience and about 30 years of experience in financial and capital markets in India. Presently, he is working with National Stock Exchange of India Limited as a Chief of Regulation. Before joining NSC, he has worked for 7 years in Kotak Group in various capacities as Chief Compliance Officer of Kotak Mutual Fund, CEO of Kotak Mahindra Pension Fund and Group Head of for Capital Market Compliances. During his stage with Kotak Group, he has set up Kotak Mahindra Pension Fund and played a key role in setting up of Kotak being anchored as Derivatives and Commodity Exchange Limited. He worked for 10 years with NSDL before joining Kotak Group from 1996 to 2006. He was a part of senior management and instrumental in listing companies with NSDL, setting up inspection department, was part of software development committees, was in charge of investor education, health, etc. He worked for SEBI in secondary market division between 1993 to 1996. And as a member of Institute of Company Secretaries of India, he has been a part of several academic initiatives of the Institute, including being on the Secretarial Standard Board and Capital Market Committee. With this brief introduction, now I request President Yatin Desai to present the memo of Dr. Narasimhan. Now I request Dr. Narasimhan to
Thank you, Nitesh, for the kind words for me. Mr. Vipul Choksi, Mr. Yatin Desai, and the Chamber, I thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak about this topic. Actually, as far as this topic is concerned, I'm the first student for this, and maybe if you have not read the Act, you will also follow me. That's all. We are trying to reckon the facts as they are given in the Act as such. In the course of this presentation, I may be expressing certain opinions. Those opinions are my personal opinions as Narasimhan, and that they do not represent opinions of National Stock Exchange. There's a disclaimer from my side. Let us be very clear on that. I think the essential crux of the new Companies Act, as I understand, is that they have tried to create a lot of personal responsibilities of the people who are running the company. If you look at various provisions that have come up, most of the time the Act really would like to push the responsibility on the person who is handling a particular job. Instead of giving it nebulous and then open, they are trying to push it on the head of the specific persons. That's what we see as an underlying theme across various sections of the Act. So in the Board of Directors provisions also, you will find this particular flavor very clearly. We try to explore it as we go forward. As you all know, as Mr. Vipul said, 180 sections were notified just 2 days before. Out of the 470 sections, 280 sections are now in operation. Other sections which are not in operations have got the word tribunal in them. Since the word tribunal is there, that's not been operationalized because some Supreme Court case against it. Otherwise, 280 sections are already there. And I'm told some rules have been notified today. So our life is going to be tough. We have to understand the rules, we have to understand the Act. Mischievously, the lawmakers said that we have reduced the number of sections in the Companies Act from whatever it is to 470, but in fact they have increased the scope of the Act by adding so many rules. So we have to handle at least 2 books, if not more, to be able to understand what Companies Act is going to be all about. That is, you read a section, it's not sufficient, you have to read the rule too. And unless you read these 2, probably you cannot understand the impact of particular provision in law. So that's going to be various immediate impact on us. I straight away go into the composition of the board. With the introduction of one person company, there is a possibility that a company can have only a single director also in case of a one person company. Otherwise it is 3-2-1. There is no difference between the old Act and the new Act. The maximum number has got undergone a change. Maximum earlier was 12, it is now made 15. And beyond 15 also a company can go with the passage of a special resolution. Earlier, if you wanted to have a larger board than that, we had to go to Government of India for getting permission. Now it is not required. We can increase the board size beyond 15 by passing a special resolution. Whether we will have situations where we will have more than 15 directors is a remote question today because of some overwhelming provisions about independent directors. Every company should have at least 1/3 of independent directors. If you have 15 directors, there should be at least 5 independent directors, and 5 independent directors should be sages. Only sages can be independent directors as per the provisions that have been sages. I don't know how many sages can we get in this country today. Okay, so let's see how it goes about. But if at all there is a situation where a company has to have more than 15, it is possible to pass a split resolution. What I foresee is, when you have got companies with multiple partners working together, in such cases, considering the independent directors also into that, there may be situations where you may need more than 15 directors. In such cases, we don't have to go to Government of India and get stuck. To that extent, it's a fairly good relief. And there should be at least one woman director. I am told in SEBI there is a lot of discussion about whether woman director should be an independent director or woman director itself. They were discussing about Rabri Devi's case. That is when Lalu went into the jail. Immediately Rabri Devi became chief minister without any winking of the eye. Therefore, it is possible that promoter will bring his wife as woman director is a suspicion. Therefore, a lot of discussion and debate went in SEBI, I am told, that whether women directors should be independent directors fitting into the various formulas given for independence definition. Whatever it is, even today, even SEBI revised corporate governance norms still retained as women director as one woman director. When we are reading the Companies Act, especially for listed companies, we need to read the Companies Act along with the revised norms for corporate governance hereafter, because at places revised corporate governance norms prescribed by SEBI are a shade stricter than Companies Act itself. Therefore, we need to, at least in the board area, we have got to read revised corporate governance norms also to have the right perspective while dealing with particular subject. At least we should have one woman director. Mr. Vipul was asking me how many listed companies we have. We have 6,000 listed companies. So at least 6,000 women directors are required. Assuming that 1,000 companies have got some women directors in some form, we need to have at least 5,000 calibered women director readily available in the next 1 year time. I think the rule has been notified for who should be, which class of the company should have a women director. I am sure listed companies will fall into that. And most of the companies having turnover beyond a particular limit, maybe 300 crores or so, will also have to have one woman director, and therefore there is going to be a lot of demand for women director in this country. And this again, the next question is, at least one director should have stayed for at least 182 days in India. This is, I think, from the perspective of joint venture companies, etc. So even if you have got a board of directors who are all the directors are residing outside the country, at least one director should have been a resident in India. That's a requirement. And then 1 year time is given for compliance with these norms. That is, within 1 year, at least one woman director should be appointed in all the companies. For listed companies, this is a provision, additional provision given. A listed company may have one director enterprise as small shareholder manner and terms and conditions will be prescribed. This is an important point. Now, a small shareholder director is also a must for a listed company. It is not clear from the Act at the moment whether this small shareholder director will be considered as independent or not. By name, it is small shareholder director, therefore he cannot be independent. That's one way of looking at it. Other way of looking at it is that since small shareholders are electing, he could be a part of independent directors. There is no clarity, but small shareholders have been given a quota of one director to be elected in a listed company, and a small shareholder is defined as a person having shares of less than 20,000 rupees worth in the company. So 20,000 rupees worth, again, there is a grey area whether it is face value or is the market price, but I think it should be face value because that's how the company can calculate. So people holding shares of the face value of less than 20,000 have to elect one shareholder as their director, one director to be placed on the director's board. So that's another requirement for the listed companies, which is again going to be fairly tough, because imagine any listed company's general body meeting. How many of the let's say smaller shareholders will actually attend? So it is possible that a set of 10-20 people will be able to nominate one director onto the board of the company. It's practicality. It's not envisaged in law, but from the practice perspective, you can imagine in any general body meeting, even if you have got 1 lakh shareholders in the company, people having 20,000 or less shares, 20,000 worth or less than that, how many of them actually attend? And how many of them will vote? So it is possible that 10-12 people will be able to nominate one director onto the board. This is one reality we are going to face as we go forward in life.
What is may have, so is it a mandatory
It says that let it by such as the rules may prescribe. You have to read the
May
rules.
have what director means, is it a
It is royal may. May in the act has to be taken as shall probably. Because they have some prescribed rules they are saying, we have to read the rule as such. So when the rule comes in, we can understand what's going to happen. But it's for specifically for listed companies. So it's possible that it will happen. And at least 1/3 of the board should be independent. This is actually killer. The listed company, at least 1/3 of the shareholders should be independent. We will come to the difference of independent as we go forward. Now, who is an independent director? It's again given in the section itself. Thankfully, definition of independent director as given in the Act and as given in the revised corporate governance norms, both of them are same, and therefore we don't have any confusion about it. Who, in the opinion of the board, is a person of integrity and possesses relevant expertise and experience. That's the first requirement. The board of directors has to decide whether a person is going to be independent or not, and he should have the relevant. He should be a person of integrity and having relevant expertise and experience. That is the requirement of the Act. And he should not be a promoter of a company. Company is a broad definition here. Company is company itself, or the holding company, subsidiary company, or associate company. I'll come to the definition of this holding, subsidiary, associate little later. But this is the way it looks like. The should not be a promoter of the company itself, or should be a promoter of holding a subsidiary company or an associate company, and should not have had any pecuniary relationship with the company in the last 3 years. Again, it's a very tough call. The Act is little clear in the sense that there should not be any pecuniary relationship. Say, let us there been a small transaction. Let's say I have engaged a legal consultant for a small assignment, one case, 3 years back, whether he can be the independent director on my board or not. Dealing by the Act, probably he cannot become a independent director on the board, because even if he has done one case or he has taken one assignment, because materiality concept has not been discussed in the Act. So to the extent, he should be completely segregated, it should not be associated with the company in any way. We have seen such provision operating in the mutual fund era. When mutual fund trustees are to be appointed, they should not have been associated in any way. That's the word used by SEBI. Therefore, there anywhere was stretched to the extent that even if the smallest transaction is done between the company and person, his association is considered as associate director. Same principles have been brought over here, and therefore should not have had any pecuniary relationship in the last 3 years. Not only that, he himself, none of his relatives should have had a pecuniary relationship with the company. Definition of relatives is given, of course, and none of his relatives should have had a pecuniary relationship. And then, by himself or relatives were key managing person of the company in preceding 3 financial years. Of course, this is a subset of the first condition. It goes further, sorry. He should not have been an employee, proprietor, partner of auditors, company secretary, legal or consultant, and such firm should have had transaction with the company amounting to 10% of turnover. If any consultancy firm, legal firm, practicing company secretary, auditor, etc., if that firm has derived 10% or more of their revenue from the particular company, then all their partners, etc., will become associate, and therefore they cannot be considered as independent directors. And a person by himself along with relatives holds 2% or more of shares of the voting power of the company, not shares, voting power of the company, then he again will not become an independent director. He is CEO or director of an NGO that receives 25% or more of its receipts from the company or promoters, then again he will lose independence. So this is a kind of a definition, very broadly it has ring fenced as to what cannot be independent directors, and that's how they have brought in the force of independent directors. This is very wide, and probably finding persons of this nature is very difficult. Usually, as I see in practice, promoters select who should be the independent directors, and probably if he likes a person, there should have been some transaction with him also earlier in life, and if that is happening, maybe that people should be cut off. So totally social acquaintances only can become independent directors in after. New corporate governance norms are in alignment with the Act. That's thankfully for us. Now let us understand the definition of associate. Holding in subsidiary company definitions, I think more or less we understand, but associate is something little again far-reaching. Associate company in relation to another company means a company in which the other company has a significant influence, but which is not a subsidiary of the company having such influence and include the joint venture in the company. What is the word influence is not defined. Definition, there is no clarity about what influence can be, but in relation to another company, if the company has got sufficient influence on the other company, that company becomes associate company. This again is the area a little grey, and possibly interpretation issues may come up from your fraternity, especially from the fraternity of auditors. When you sit down for auditing and you would like to see corporate governance, audit area, if it comes into that. So whether associate, we have to check the directorship shared by this person across various companies and see whether there is possibility of any influence in some form or the other, we have to see. For example, some leader in the firm, leader in the industry will have influencing impact on all other companies in the industry. Does it mean its influence? Don't know. Holding company in relation to holding company, subsidiary company, I think it's fairly easy to, this is a matter of definition, nothing much to discuss about. There are some other provisions with regard to independent directors. Why did I say that independent director should be a sage? Because of this reason. Independent director shall not be entitled to stock options. He is entitled only to fees, reimbursements and profit share. Not project share, profit share. He is entitled for profit share, he is entitled for fees and he is entitled for reimbursements. Fees is sealed by government law, so therefore it cannot be beyond that. There is a possibility of profit share, of course, but he cannot take stock options. That is, he will not be able to benefit from the improvement in the company valuations. That's what it means. He can either take cash profits from that company, but it cannot take benefit of the valuation benefits of the company. That's a major point here. And the independent director should keep on in the first meeting and at the beginning of every financial year, he should declare that he is independent in the company. The independence has to be reiterated by him every year. That is an important point. And he shall abide by the provisions of Schedule 4. Schedule 4 is now already implemented. I will describe about Schedule 4 a little later. But he should be abide by the provisions of Schedule 4. Schedule 4 gives in a kind of a code of conduct as to how independent director has to behave in the company. We will discuss in detail as we go forward. This is an interesting provision. What is he liable for has been defined. I think this is a very good provision from the point of view of protecting the independent director and also providing a clarity as to what is he liable for. Earlier the question was in Satyam and other companies, the law stands to independent directors also, and to the extent there is some kind of a jittery feeling amongst the people who are independent directors. Even now people say we don't want to be independent directors because of the liability component. But we will see by the particular statement which is given in the Act, shall be held liable only in respect of acts of the company which occurred with his knowledge, attributable through board processes and with his consent, connivance or where he had not acted diligently. Each word has got a value here. He shall be liable only in respect of acts of the company which occurred with his knowledge. With his knowledge would mean what? Economic Times and Business Standard? No. Knowledge attributable through board processes. That is, an agenda was placed, agenda was read by him, and since he knows in the board process, during the discussions or through agenda, he got to know about a particular matter, and in such a matter, if something goes wrong, he will be held liable. That's a very important point to understand. And with his consent and connivance, either his consent has been given or is connived. Of course, connivance is a big word. Consent is a good, moderate word. And where he had not acted diligently. This again is fairly draconian stuff. Where he had not acted diligently would mean what? He should have objected to a particular item if it is placed before the board properly. He should have exercised his mind, understood the content of the particular subject, and he must have said no, yes, sought the clarification, etc. And he must have participated in the board discussion in a way that he is demonstrating exercise of diligence. This I think very important, because unless we prove all these things, a person who is independent director cannot escape the liability for the activities of the company.
That means matters which were not discussed in the board meeting are not covered.
That's what it means. That's what it means. That is, attributable through board processes was specifically brought into the act. To the extent it means that if it is not placed before the board, even if he has got general knowledge about it, probably he can always say I don't know, because it is not formally placed before him. But let's understand one thing, he did not attend a particular board meeting, it does not give him any kind of a exemption in that. He has got the agenda, he has read the agenda, once he has got the agenda, he cannot say that I don't have the knowledge. Attending the meeting or not attending the meeting may not be material, but as long as the item has been placed in the board, he is responsible for the particular item. That's the implication of this particular thing called knowledge attributable to the board process and his consent. And he is supposed to record dissent in case he does not want a particular item to go through. He must raise questions. And I think the way in which minutes are going to be written also going to make substantial difference. So long as until now, generally the practice has been to write the gist of the discussions and come to a conclusion what discussion was and what the decision is. But hereafter, if a director has said something, that has to be probably part of becoming a minutes. That may be major difference that we will see as we go forward in life as far as this particular provision is concerned. An independent director shall not retire by rotation. So it does not come into the retirement rotation area and shall be selected. This is a peculiar provision again. Shall be selected from a data bank maintained by a recognized body, due diligence to be done by the company. So far, how do you shortlist a person? How do you recognize a person to be appointed as independent director? I mean, it's anybody's guess. There's something called the nominations committee. And where does the nomination committee get names from? Nomination committee gets names from the recommendations. Recommendations essentially are the promoter. That's how it used to happen. Our colleague directors on the board. Hereafter, it's not like that. It should be taken from the data bank to be maintained by a recognized body. That is, there will be rules will be prescribed. Probably Institute of Company Secretaries of India, IRNI, or a separate database will be maintained by MCA, maybe having a list of names from where the name has to be picked up. Even if you want to pick up a name of your choice, that name should be appearing in the data bank. Probably that's the thought here, and therefore it's not going to be like in the morning walk I met somebody and therefore he's coming as an independent director. Does not work. It has to happen through the data bank. We have to see who's going to set up a data bank and what kind of process that's going to come up in this. And then appointment shall be approved by the general body. Independent directors should be appointed by general body. This is a very peculiar provision. Having identified a person as independent director by the nomination committee, it should go to general body meeting. It will get voted, of course, no doubt. But anyway, the point is that since it has to be approved by general body, it would mean that the profile of the person is described to the general body, and general body has an understanding of who is going to be their representative or independent director. Probably that is the intent of the law in this case. Some of these provisions, I mean, okay. All these provisions are fairly same in the new corporate governance norms and the Companies Act. There's not much of different. As far as resignation is concerned, it is a reiteration of the earlier provisions only. Nothing much in this, of course. But some clarity has emerged in terms of effective date of resignation. There's always a confusion as to what is the date of effective date of resignation of a person. It is very clearly said that resignation will take effect from the date of receipt of resignation by the company or the date if any specified the director in the notice, whichever is later. That is, earlier whether resignation was to be accepted by the board of directors was a contention. There is no such requirement. If he has said I am resigned, it is resignation. The date on which he has submitted to the company or date on which he mentions in the letter will be the date on which he will be resigning from the company. Resignation date will have significance going forward in life because the directors are held personally responsible for the various acts of omissions and commissions by the company, and unless there is a cut-off date by which he can establish association with the company, he will not be able to protect himself. And therefore, date of resignation becomes fairly important in the life of a corporate body as such. And as far as independent directors are concerned, there is a provision in the new company's corporate governance norms that there is a reason for resignation of independent director shall be put on the website and should be filed with the exchange. This is very important and very interesting. What they say is, if an independent director resigns from the boardship, he has to file a letter with the exchange. With the company in turn has to file with the exchange. What SEBI expects, I am talking from a speech given by CGM in charge of this subject. What he says is, if a person says I am resigning on personal health grounds from a particular company, and accepts receive an independent directorship or directorship in another company in a week's time, 10 days time, then SEBI may question saying that, oh, you are not healthy for this company, your health permits for becoming director in another company, the question mark. It happened, it has come out of a particular example, a particular gentleman who held very high positions in the regulatory organizations in this country, he resigned on health grounds from a listed company which was sinking, and he has accepted the independent directorship of an associate company which is floating. So he was not healthy for a sinking company, he was healthy good enough for a floating company. That's not going to happen. That's what exactly the intent of law over here. Resignation of independent directors, reason for resignation has to be filed with the exchange. Going forward, I suspect that the exchanges will be asked to examine whether the reason given by the independent director is good enough for resignation and monitor his other appointments later on. That's going to happen in future, is our suspicion. Tenure of independent directors, this is slightly a dichotomy between the Act and the new corporate governance norms, therefore I brought the point up here. Tenure of 5 years, 2 tenures of 5 years each is what is available for him. First 5 years he can be appointed with the ordinary resolution, next 5 years he has to be appointed with the special resolution. So total tenure is 10 years, first 5 years direct appointment through ordinary resolution, next 5 years through special resolution.